Welcome to the next episode of the HR Mavericks podcast. I'm Garrett Justice, and today I'm joined by retired Lieutenant Colonel Kathy Lowrey Gallowitz, who's the founder and president at Vanguard Veteran. Kathy, how are you doing today?
Hey, Garrett, I'm super. Thanks so much for taking the time to learn about Vanguard Veteran and how everybody listening can become veteran champions.
Thank you so much for joining the show today. We're excited to get in and hear about your background and your company and what you do. Before we do that, tell our listeners a little bit more about you, about your career, and give us the overview of your company too.
Great. Thank you. I spent 29 years in the Air Force, active duty, Guard, and Reserve after growing up as a Navy kid. Real quick, I went to a French-speaking preschool in Paris, France. Spoke French fluently as a young kid, probably even better than I spoke English, honestly. And then in the middle of my junior year in high school, another good Navy story. My dad picked me up and moved me to a small island in the North Atlantic, where I graduated from a class of 30 in a Department of Defense high school in Keflavik, Iceland.
Wow.
At the ripe old age of 16. If you don't think that makes an impact on your life, I mean, you know what's going on in your life when you're 16, right? You just got your driver's license, your first boyfriend. You know, I was a varsity cheerleader. I had the strongest sense of belonging I'd ever known. So that's all part of the backstory, really. And then before the age of 35, I'd lived in about 20 different communities.
Wow.
Not houses, communities. And so that's an important part of military culture. And I share that quick anecdote because it sort of set the stage for my life's calling. I was privileged when I was in the Ohio Air National Guard to start a never been done before outreach office in response to 9/11 to educate and engage civilians in support of troops and their families.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we don't really have a good mechanism for that in our country, and it's a huge gap. So we started with employers. That was the primary purpose because 80% of our workforce in the Guard was part-time military. So most of them either had a full-time employer or they were going to college to get their degree, and the military was helping to fund that. So about 5 years ago, after I retired from the Ohio National Guard, I started Vanguard Veteran to continue my life's calling of equipping civilians to become veteran champions. Because again, it's a huge gap in our society. I mean, I know firsthand that Americans love the military, trust the military, appreciate the military.
Yeah.
And yet, many people come home without the connectivity that they need to really maximize their quality of life.
Yeah.
Some come home broken. Most are not broken from military service. But Vanguard Veteran equips employers to find and keep veteran talent. I call myself the veteran hiring concierge. And I help equip volunteer military ministry leaders to start these places of connection inside places of worship. I am the military ministry builder.
Awesome.
So I am incredibly passionate about what I do because I've lived it.
Yeah.
I, personally as a military kid, a military officer, I'm also a military wife. My husband was an active duty career soldier and a combat veteran. My son served for a while. And so I've seen it from lots of different vantage points. And through my experience, Garrett, with the Ohio National Guard in our outreach office, I really saw firsthand how much satisfaction rolling up your sleeves, learning just a little bit of stuff and taking action, how much satisfaction that gives to our citizenry to do what they can for service members, veterans, and their families. It's really a good news story, but there's a lot more education, familiarization, and other things that need to be taken into consideration to really do it well, to bring our service members all the way home.
Well, so that's excellent. We are super excited to have you on the show. And I guess first and foremost, thank you for your service. Like your background says, for those who are watching the video, we're going to go beyond that today. We do appreciate your service and all of those who have served. I think all of us, whether we've served individually, we know someone, whether a family member,
Yes.
a friend who has served. For me, it's my father-in-law, it's my grandfather, it's my brother-in-law, who have all served in the military and have, their own experiences. So I think you're absolutely right. What more can we do to help support, those service members who are coming home and helping them be integrated into further employment? And there's different things we can do. And that's what we want to talk about today, right?
Right, exactly. And just real quick, who helped you understand how to perform that, how to do that for all these different veterans in life? Did anybody come by and say, hey, would you consider doing X, Y, or Z for your loved ones, or for, no one does that, right?
No one does. Yeah.
You have to figure it out on your own. So what Garrett's talking about is my book, Beyond Thank You for Your Service, the Veteran Champion Handbook for Civilians. You can find it on Amazon, and there's chapters for employers, lawyers, healthcare providers, general community members, mayors, etc., and clergy. And so there's concrete, actionable steps that any citizen can take, even as a neighbor, right? Yeah. Or a fellow church, a fellow member in your place of worship. Mm-hmm. But today we want to zero in on how important employers are and how it benefits them to hire this incredible talent.
That's excellent. We will be for sure add a link to where you can find that book from Kathy on Amazon in the show notes. So if you are listening to this, maybe you're driving in the car somewhere, don't worry about scribbling that down real quick. Stay safe. Keep your eyes on the road. We'll come back and look in the show notes, and that's where we'll drop the link in.
Thank you.
So Kathy, we want to talk today, just like you mentioned, on specifically about this topic of a veteran-ready employer and what does that mean? And so really to kind of start this off, this conversation, I want to just kind of open up at the very highest level. Why do you think that companies should consider hiring more veterans?
Research shows that veterans are more productive and more mission focused than their non-veteran counterparts. The Society of Human Resource Management Foundation did a study in about 2019, I think, and 68% of employers felt that veterans were better than, if not much better than, employees than people who hadn't served. Mm-hmm. Also, they're more educated and they are more loyal and tend to stay longer, really after their first post-military job when there's really a good match. And so you know what the answer is to this question, why we make good employees. I mean, we have I love to say, a get her done mentality. Yeah. I mean, we have a zero tolerance for mission failure. We are disciplined. We show up on time. We know how to lead. We know how to follow. Mm-hmm. We are tech savvy, for the most part. And, we really appreciate developing people around us. In the military, it's our job to develop the people that we call them our subordinates. Yeah. Because guess what? Any of us could get hit by a bus at any time. And so that other person needs to be able to step into your role. Yeah. So those are some of the primary reasons, and then we haven't even talked about values. Oh my gosh, integrity, service before self, excellence. There's just a lot of pride instilled in us, and our military branches are fundamentally values-based. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's excellent. We have great character and we have highly transferable skills. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's why, all of us, if you know someone in the military, chances are you really admire that person who is in the military or who had formerly served. And I think it's all of those reasons that you just mentioned right there. So, first and foremost, they make great employees, and they're the type of employees that any business owner would want to hire. So, what are the common myths or misconceptions that need to be really clarified when it comes to hiring veterans? Why don't more companies hire more veterans? Okay, let me back up just a minute, if I may, and address
Sure.
something you started with, Garrett. And that is, what does veteran ready mean? Okay.
Sure.
And I just want to draw a real quick distinction between veteran friendly and veteran ready. Now, I think that the business case for hiring veterans is pretty clear. The unemployment rate for veterans is consistently lower than that for civilian unemployment.
Mhm.
Okay. And so employers, practically every employer is veteran friendly because they know that veterans produce and, show up. But not every employer is veteran ready. And so in essence,
Yeah.
the concept is that you have processes in place, that you are an architect and not just an advocate. Architects have blueprints. So a veteran ready employer would have metrics. They would understand the tools that they need to excel at hiring. They would implement some of the retention tactics. They're in it for the long haul. They listen to the voice of the veteran. And in this day and age, it's real interesting because there isn't really a solid definition for veteran ready. Depends on who you ask. Some people say it's a military effective organization. But the point is, it's not ad hoc. It's got to be organized. It's got to be evaluated, and it's got to be improved for the long haul.
Yeah.
And that makes you kind of veteran ready. And who better to do that and lead that than an HR person?
Yeah. I'm so glad you made that point. And just if I can put a plug in there, I think to me, what stands out about that, and I love that distinction between veteran ready and veteran friendly, because I think most businesses, like you mentioned, are veteran friendly. The difference to me there is like the proactivity. When you're veteran ready, you're being proactive and you're trying to attract those types of employees, future employees, right? And you're doing things proactively rather than just hoping and opportunistically if someone comes along and applies, right?
Well put.
Yeah.
And it's integrated into everything in your organization, especially for larger companies, the DE&I, the corporate citizenship,
right,
the volunteering and philanthropy. It's all aligned within your veteran hiring initiative. It's not, separate pillars and stovepiped. And so it just has to be, very fluid, evaluated, and improved all the time. And, willing to stick through, when things don't go well, or, when you feel frustrated. Just being in it for the long haul is really an important component of this.
Yeah. So that's so right. I can totally see that. So going back to this original question, what, if anything, what are the common myths or misconceptions that might need to be clarified when it comes to hiring veterans?
Well, most of us know what we know, or take our impressions from the television set, right?
Yeah.
Well, what do we see on TV about military people? Well, you've got the drill sergeant who's barking orders, right? or you've got the veteran who's homeless on the side of the street, or unfortunately, some veterans do terrible things because they're sick, right?
Yeah.
And so, some of the misconceptions are, first and foremost, that everybody has PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That is absolutely wrong. The VA says that Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, about 20% may have it. So 80% don't, right?
Yeah.
All right. And PTSD does not necessarily make you more violent. And the triggers can be managed well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the myth busting on that one. The other piece is, maybe veterans can only bark orders, right? Well, no. Leadership 101 is that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. John Maxwell teaches that, and I love that. And so the only way you build influence is by building trusting relationships. And where is more important to have a trusting relationship than someone who trains to go to war and goes to war to defend freedom? Okay. Yeah. Now our units have to be disciplined, responsive, know their role on the team, and follow orders, or the mission may not succeed and probably won't. Okay. So the way we communicate, our discipline, and our ability to have direct, firm communication can be pretty well ingrained. And, frankly, because could probably use some softening post military service. But it is so untrue that all military people, all they can do is bark orders. They can follow orders. They know how to be a team player. That's a big part of our DNA. Yeah. And then the direct communication style, I've kind of hit on that. My husband's so funny. He would say to me, people are just using up good Army oxygen. Right. And I'd be like, okay, I was Air Force. What the heck does that mean anyway? But what it means is, bluff, bottom line up front. Let's get to the point. Okay. Yeah. Now you can get to the point with a smile on your face and a nice tone of voice. Right. Or you can get to the bottom line, a lot more gruffer or whatever. Sure. And so, military people are highly coachable. Yeah. They are used to receiving feedback. They know they are confident, and yet some people might feel that that's bossy, or some people may be intimidated by that confidence, right? So those are some of the myths and misconceptions. I think that's a pretty good overview.
Those are great. No, those are great. I'm so glad that you addressed each of those. And I would say, most competent employers, those are the attributes that they want in employees. Again, right? Is they want someone who's confident, yet coachable, and who can speak up in the right way and speak their mind. So I think all of those things are, again, just plugs for why should you hire veterans, right?
Well, and our military people are used to getting feedback. Okay. We evaluate everything that we do. And if you don't give them feedback, they probably think everything is okay. Right. And military people, when they take off their uniform, it's such a loss of identity. We lose our buddies. We lose so much. And research says that 55% of veterans feel disconnected from mainstream America. So the first day you step foot in a new job, you just feel like a fish out of water. You don't know what clothes to wear. You don't, there's just so many questions that you have, and you feel just, very inadequate. And maybe most people feel like it's an imposter syndrome, because I know how to do my job in the military and I know how to act in the military, but I don't know either of those things more often than not when I take my first civilian job. So, coaching and support's important.
That's such a good point. And so I think that kind of leads into the next question that I have for you. So, as a small business, we've already, proven the point probably to death at this point. You should hire veterans. You need to do it. We've also talked about how you need to be proactive. You need to be veteran ready, not just veteran friendly, right? And so moving on to that next step, we have these awesome veterans out there. How does a small business go about in a proactive way sourcing and interviewing military talent to, again, attract that talent that is so great to their workforce?
Okay. First tip is to talk to your Department of Veterans Services in your state, kind of as the leading subject matter expert. Now, many departments focus more on benefits than they do on employment, but they probably have a good feel as to where you might be able to go to source veteran talent. Number two, there are American Job Centers throughout the nation that are in your county buildings. Most states, if not all, give veterans preferential treatment, and they're earmarked in the job boards. Okay. Those are two great sources. Then the more informal sources, every community has stronger than other nonprofits like Goodwill or US Vets that have programs, or P3 or Marine for Life. The National Guard has programs. Takes a little bit of work to find those people and to develop relationships, but that's where the veteran hiring concierge comes in. I know where to look and how to connect with these people. So just kind of start small and dipping your toe in the water. And the other thing that's really important is attend the veteran events in your communities and wear your shirt with your logo on it.
Yeah.
If you can donate money, be sponsors to veteran focused events.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, other things like doing your messaging on your website is really important. So people know you're serious about hiring veterans.
Yeah.
So those are some sources. The other part of the question was
interviewing. So, the first part
Yes.
is like, how do we find and source? And then what else do we need to do to make sure that there's a great interviewing environment?
I would encourage you to take a military culture training course, which of course I offer, so
Mm-hmm.
that you aren't put off by the rigid body posture, by the yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, by the inability to initiate conversation, or just the incredible nervousness, particularly for probably our younger service members. But realize, Garrett, that many of our veteran job seekers have never had a job interview.
Yeah.
Okay. The military hiring system, depending on what branch of the service you're in, is very different. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're probably very nervous, and they probably speak in acronyms. And so that needs to be addressed. So interviewing, just really try to put the person at ease, ask questions about, where were you stationed? What did you like best? What did you appreciate about the military? Try to get them to calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the behavioral style questions, as you know, for most candidates is really the best. And, trying to ask leading questions so that they can evaluate the impact they made in their civilian jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Will get them far. And so it's really the job seeker's job to come prepared with a resume that's not all military talk, right?
Yeah.
And it's the veteran job seeker's job to be prepared and hopefully somewhat comfortable for the job interview. But we have a ways to go really to help our service members really do that. And, just stay away from questions like, of course, do you have PTSD? And of course, did you ever kill anyone? I mean, absolutely. You don't say those things in a job interview. I just thought I would mention them for the good of the order, if you will. And one other big important point is know what military skills translators are.
Yeah, I want to get to that in just a minute. One thought that I have before we do that, though, is, it really sounds to me like it's just a cultural difference, right?
Yes.
And we need to make sure that as an organization, if we are going to be veteran ready, that we understand the different culture of where these people are coming from. Just like if we were, actively hiring one race or population over another, there might be differences in culture there, right? Hiring in Japan might be completely different than hiring in the US, right? And so understanding the cultural differences there and making sure that you can tailor to some of those cultural differences helps you to be more veteran ready. Is that right?
100%. And I really encourage all the listeners, all the HR professionals, if you would look at that resume a first or a second time, be willing to hire for character and be willing to train. Okay. Yeah. We military people, that's all we do. That's a lot of what we do is train for this job and train for that job and move and, highly adaptable and flexible. And, it was interesting when I took my first full-time position in the Guard, my military supervisor hired me for character and trainability, not because I had relevant job skills. I had to. So it works in the civilian world. It works in the military world, and those work attributes and values will carry the day. Yeah. And you will really be proud of the investment you made in that military people, even if their resume does not exactly match the specific job that you're looking for.
So great point. And to that, though, I want to get to what you mentioned before. Tell us a little bit more about military skills translators. What are they, how they work, and why should, small businesses be aware of them?
This is an absolutely essential thing for you to look up. Just put in military skills translators in Google. I particularly like O''NET, O-net. Mm-hmm. And basically, are you familiar with it?
I am actually. Yes.
Oh, great. Have you ever used the military crosswalk feature?
I have not.
All
No.
right. All right. Well, I don't mean to call you out on that, buddy,
That's
but
next. Yep.
yeah,
We'll do
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's really great because, for instance, quick story: an 11 Bravo in the Army is an infantryman. Garrett, do you happen to know what that is?
On the feet on the ground, right?
Right on. Good job. So they are the soldiers who do the heavy lifting in combat. They are trained to kill. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's their primary job. So if you put in 11 Bravo in the military crosswalk, it will come up with all kinds of civilian jobs that the overall training, not just how to carry a gun, how to shoot a gun, mm-hmm. but how to manage your workforce, how to take care of your equipment, how to communicate, all these things, the KSAs are all spilled out mm-hmm. for the kinds of jobs that the 11 Bravo will be eligible for. And the one that's right at the top of the list is a training and development manager, right? And so I encourage every HR or every interviewing board mm-hmm. or individual to look at the military skills translator if you can figure out from the resume what their military job was. And it even identifies by branch of service mm-hmm. and look at the KSAs and prepare questions to lead that job candidate in the interview process so that they maybe will be better at describing what their job was. Another big distinction between military and civilian culture is there's no I in team. All right. Military people are historically usually horrible at self-promotion. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you come prepared with questions that pulls the information out of them a little bit, to, right. If they're not doing a good job, the military skills translator will help you do that. And again, don't be surprised if they don't initiate small talk, right?
Yep.
They see you as a person of authority, a person who has, a lot of power to decide their future. And so they're probably going to be pretty nervous.
Yeah. Excellent tips, man. These are just great tools that I think all of us should get more familiar with and use so we can be veteran ready. So as we get close to the end here, one thing I want to circle back to is you kind of mentioned at the very beginning some of the benefits of hiring veterans, and one of them specifically on their loyalty and retention. So, what are some specific things that organizations, companies can do to be more veteran ready when it comes to retention of the military population for those who already work for them?
Well, for any employee, retention starts before they start the job, right? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
Something just as simple as making sure that the new veteran hire knows what to wear the first day of work so that they feel comfortable. I can't tell you how often my soldier has said to me, not to go to work, but just to live life and social functions. Honey, what do I wear? Honey, yeah. Right. It's just, that's not probably uncommon generally, but he's very hypersensitive to it because he doesn't want to stick out. And
right.
He's just not aware of those things. Right. Okay. So I recommend a year-long onboarding process, and one that's not, in our language, just pencil whipped, right? Mm-hmm. One that is taken with sincerity and dynamic, and people, want to be involved and do the jobs. I recommend that there is a civilian and a military mentor where the new hire can go and ask questions. Mm-hmm. And, just, open door policies, because there's so many, we're used to highly structured environments. And when you wear a uniform, just about everything about that person. Mm-hmm. And you know how to make decisions, what the policies and procedures are. And, civilian life just isn't like that. It's much looser and much more informal. So they're going to have a lot of questions. And then the other really important thing is to have a way to bring the veterans together, to offer support to one another,
Mhm.
but also to provide them a voice. And now, of course, we all know about ERGs or affinity groups or, business BRGs, whatever you want to call them.
Mhm.
And so larger companies, most of them have veteran employee resource groups. But if you're a small company and you have, let's say, 50 employees and you have, say you're lucky enough to have 10 veterans, right?
Mhm.
Well, allow those veterans an opportunity to get together and, tell war stories or just stories in general, right?
Yeah.
Encourage them to bond and then, encourage them to grow, give them leadership training,
Mhm.
to connect them with mentors, expect them to advance, have advancement procedures, advancement policies, because again, military people know how to advance in the military and they're used to that. And then when they offer you feedback, please consider that feedback seriously,
Mhm.
because generally speaking, they want to make a difference, they want to help, and they want the company to succeed, and they're proud to contribute.
Yeah. Makes sense. Kathy, this has been such an excellent conversation. I could probably continue for another 30, 40 minutes on this because there's so many great insights that you shared with us today. Unfortunately, I know we're getting close on time, but really appreciate you joining and sharing some of these tips to help organizations be more veteran ready employers. And so as we get close to the end and kind of wrap up here, one question I do like to ask all of our guests is just what's one thing that you would recommend that our listeners do this week to help improve their HR people functions?
Start getting familiar with the veteran community and reach out to veteran neighbors and other military people and try to start a relationship with them so that you feel more comfortable.
Yeah, that's great. Excellent tip. I'd encourage everyone to do that. I have some neighbors I need to go talk to this week and get to know them a little bit better.
Nice. Tell me how that goes. I'm serious. I'd love to hear about your experience.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
I will. Well, Kathy, thank you again for joining us today and sharing some of your insights. If there are listeners who want to learn more about working with you, about your book, or maybe they have follow-up questions on something we talked about today, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
I invite anybody who's listening to go to my website, Vanguard Veteran.com. There is a veteran ready assessment, an employer veteran ready assessment on there that's absolutely free of charge. Just go under the hiring space. And then I'd love to do a 30-minute consultation with you to explore where you're at on the continuum and see how I might be able to be supportive in the future. My email is Kathy with a K at vanguardveteran.com. And I, of course, really encourage you to take a look at to get the book and just familiarize yourself with the ideas, the concepts, and absorb. I think it's chapter 4, all focused on employers, some of the tactics and tips that will really help you succeed with your veteran hires, because guess what? Your company's going to fare well and your company's going to be stronger when you truly become a veteran champion employer.
Excellent. Well, Kathy, thank you again so much for sharing some of your tips with us today, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate all you're doing.
Thanks.